Thank you very much for that. Time to bring in our political strategist who join us each Monday afternoon. Grahame Morris here with me in the studio and Bruce Hawker in the Sky News Centre. Welcome to you both. I want to start with James Ashby, the interview that he's given 60 Minutes that ran last night. Now, a lot of this stuff we've seen before, Grahame, the text messages, the recounting of a massage that he gave Peter Slipper and the rest of it. A lot of tawdry stuff there, no doubt. The question politically, though, is then how he dealt with it and how the then opposition, the coalition, handled it as well. Christopher Pyne today said he was not aware of the specifics of the case, but he's acknowledged they did meet. He was aware that James Ashby was uncomfortable in the office of Peter Slipper, and they did talk about the prospect of him being given a job either at the state or federal level by the Liberal Party. Does that implicate Christopher Pyne any further in this whole saga?
I don't think so, David. Incidentally, I did think James Ashby handled himself superbly on 60 Minutes. That was not an easy interview at all. And he looked very credible. He was sure of what he's saying. He handled himself well. And I thought it was actually 60 Minutes at its best and its hypocritical worst. 60 Minutes and some of the ABC current affairs programs today would have been the first to jump up and down if three politicians had been told about sexual harassment charges of the Speaker of the Parliament and they'd turned their back and done nothing. We'd have had a whole campaign from 60 Minutes, as we did once with a former Governor-General and various others. So, it was good television. It was a clever interview. But, geez, it gets hypocritical at times.
Let me just ask you about a detailed question here. What should happen and you've been a Chief of Staff to a Prime Minister, what should happen if a staffer in an MP's office feels they're being sexually harassed? What channels should actually be followed?
Well, that's the awkward thing. In this case, I think I'd have done what a couple of the politicians did say, and that is go to the sort of nearest friendly QC or barrister. And that was David Russell from Queensland. It had it come to me, I'd have said, look, a bloke like David Russell will give you some advice. And that's not a bad idea. The problem with this one is you would normally go to the Speaker of the Parliament or the people who control the Parliament. But they're controlled by the Speaker. So it was sort of one of those dreadful catch-22s.
You can understand why he did what he did and got onto a member of the government, he says, White Roy, and then Christopher Pyne, even though clearly they were pretty fierce political opponents of Peter Slipper, had a motive to see him done in.
Well, they did, but I still can't see what they did wrong. The alternate is what, George Pell and the Catholic leadership's in trouble for, or a former Governor-General in trouble for. Somebody comes with a complaint and you turn your back. These people at least tried to steer him towards in the right direction. And, OK, it's a very ugly sort of situation. But I can't see that anyone has done anything improper here. And as for, whether or not, there's now doubt, even in his own job, Ashby would have gone in and out of Christopher Pyne's office. The Speaker's office has to talk to the Leader of the House and the opposition. So it'd have been in and out as to, who said what to whom. I don't know.
Well, yeah, Bruce, that's disputed, obviously, what exactly Chris Pyne knew, or White Roy for that matter. Chris Pyne did say today he was aware that James Ashby was uncomfortable working for Peter Slipper and clearly wanted to get out and get another job, and they maybe talked a bit about that as well. But do you think Christopher Pyne, White Roy, anyone who may have had an inkling about the rumours or the uncomfortableness that James Ashby felt should have pointed him in a different direction, should have responded to this somehow differently?
Oh, look, who knows? I mean, I think if this had been in a whole bunch of Labor figures, though, there would probably be a Royal Commission into it by now, David. I suspect, though, that this is one of these things which is just going to bubble along or trickle along. It's not very pleasant at all. I don't think most people really care too much about it anymore. It was certainly a period when the Liberal Party was out to get Slipper because he'd left them and was now an independent speaker supporting the Gillard government effectively. So there was plenty of motive around the place to go after Slipper and to use whatever means they could. But I think this has just descended now into a he said, she said style saga, and I don't think it's going to go much further than this. That's my sense of it.
I think that's probably right. Some in Labor suggest there are more questions to be answered by Christopher Pyne and Tony Abbott. I can't see. Christopher Pyne stood for about half an hour today taking questions on this and said what we've just reported. But whether he'll say anything more or take any more questions on this, we'll see. I want to get both your thoughts too on the Peter Cretland emails that have now been made public. These were subject to a suppression order at the Independent Commission Against Corruption over the weekend. She's arrived back yesterday from the trip with Tony Abbott to India and Malaysia. She's realised there's a suppression order here. She's written, and we've got the letter here, written to the Speaker of the House, Bronwyn Bishop, saying, I've no objection to this email being made public. The email, and I think we can show it to you again here, it's back and forth between her, Paul Nicolau, who was the Liberal Party, or was the Liberal Party's chief fundraiser at the time, and the head of Brickworks, a company that was a significant donor to the Liberal Party, and ICAC is looking at donations from property developers, and Brickworks does some property development that shouldn't have, but did allegedly wind up with the New South Wales Liberal Party. But this back and forth of emails is about information on a line of attack for question time that Peter Cretland was after about the carbon tax. She says, Paul, Lindsay is from Brickworks, Lindsay provides a great line for question time. Do you have a number I might be able to contact him on and see if he was happy for us to use it, and perhaps use his sector as an example? We wouldn't do this without his explicit approval, but it would be ideal for tomorrow. Cheers, Peter. Bruce, to you first on this one. Paul Nicolau and Brickworks certainly are under investigation, but has Peter Cretland done anything wrong on the basis of that?
Not that I can see just on the basis of that. Certainly there's a very real question about how $120,000 went back from the Liberal Party in Canberra to the Liberal Party in New South Wales. The donations obviously from a developer as Brickworks is to the Liberal Party in New South Wales was and is illegal, but to the Liberal Party in Canberra it was perfectly legal. However, $120,000 found its way back. So that's where I think the ICAC investigations will take themselves, and I don't think they will probably go too far down the path of investigating Peter Cretland, because there's no suggestion here that she knew anything about the money going back to New South Wales. So that's, I think,
Bruce, you've worked in opposition as well, and you know, this is when they were in opposition. Trying to get information, specifics from companies that might back up the argument you're mounting in question time. There's nothing particularly unusual about that.
No, there's not. And I mean, the fact that they had three big, visits to Brickworks factories could be seen as something of an issue. But once again, they'll just say, look, we were trying to make as much as we could out of the carbon tax, and this guy was a willing supporter of our position on carbon tax. I don't think you can, nor can I think you can say that this fellow was going to change Abbott's position on carbon tax, because they were in furious agreement that they didn't want the thing. So wherever you go, I don't really think, as much as I'd love to see more trouble for the Liberal Party in Canberra, I just don't think this does any real damage to Peter Cretland on the basis of the emails that we've seen.
Does it, Graham, is it a bad look that this company is a big Liberal Party donor and then Tony Abbott is taking up their case in question time?
No. And I'm getting a bit sick of the hired help at ICAC. You know, Ian and Blyton used to make up a couple of stories a year. These people are making up a couple of stories a week. And by association, absolutely nothing wrong with what Peter Cretland did. In fact, she'd be a dill if she got a phone call and said, hey, the biggest brick-making company in Australia is really concerned by the carbon tax, and she did nothing, and Peter Cretland is not a dill. Of course you would say, as I used to, and Bill Shorten, you know, he's getting a call every day now from the renewable energy bloody sector. You know, should ICAC be there saying, how dare the renewable energy sector ring Bill Shorten with ideas for question time? Look, it was a perfectly legitimate role for her to play. And Bruce, there is nothing illegal about what has happened with the Free Enterprise Foundation and money. Absolutely nothing illegal. All of this is being sort of guilt by association and a headline-grabbing exercise, and it's damn disgraceful that you get somebody like Peter Credlin caught up in this just because somebody wants to have a headline for themselves. Bloody outrageous.
I don't look. Two things there. One thing, I don't think ICAC needs to go chasing headlines. I think they've got them coming to them on a daily basis. There have been 10 Liberal members of Parliament in New South Wales now forced to stand aside, and there have been some on the Labor side as well. So they're just out there following leads. But I don't think we should be downplaying the significance of $120,000 going back to the Liberal Party in New South Wales when the money originated with Brickworks, which is a developer and lists development as one of its core functions. That is at the centre of all this. Now, that I think is where ICAC has a very, very legitimate role to play, and I think they'll continue to pursue that. That's a lot of money that should never have gone to the Liberal Party in New South Wales that ended up in their coffers before the election.
All right, we've got to take a break. We'll come back with more, including the moves towards deeper engagement in Iraq. Is the Australian public ready for this? Are they prepared to become more deeply engaged? You're watching PM Agenda. We're talking to Bruce Hawker and Grahame Morris. I just want to touch on yet another inquiry. This is one of those royal commissions that perhaps Bruce was referring to earlier. The Royal Commission into union slush funds. It's going to hear from Julia Gillard. The former PM is going to appear on Wednesday of this week before that Royal Commission. Bruce, Kevin Rudd appeared before the Royal Commission into pink bats, and that was quite a spectacle. A former PM in the witness box. We knew, though, his contrition at the time over the problems there, and he did make a statement accepting ultimate responsibility. In this case with Julia Gillard, she's never really given an inch in relation to these claims of her alleged involvement, her actual involvement in providing advice to set up this fund, but then whether the funds ended up paying for her home renos. She's always denied that. How do you think this is going to play out this week? Are we in for a combative appearance?
Yes, I think we will see that. Based on her performances in the past, she's been absolutely steadfast in her denials about any wrongdoing. You'll recall that she once did a press conference, I think, that went for about an hour, where she fielded questions from the entire press gallery, and no one ever dinted any of her position on any of this. So I think she will repeat that in this performance, in this inquiry in the coming week. I point out, though, that this is an issue which goes back to the early 1990s. It's more than 20 years old. I mean, that's remarkable, and it just really goes to, I think, the questions about the bona fides of the, of the government trying to push this line of inquiry for the Royal Commission. It's one thing to be talking about contemporary acts of, corruption that they're investigating involving unions and businesses. I think that's fair game, and we deserve to be seeing all that and listening to all that and learning from it. But something that went 20 years ago, there's only one answer for that. It's because she was the Prime Minister at the time and people wanted to make political mileage out of it.
Is, Grahame, this the sort of stuff that should be the subject of a Royal Commission in your view, and how do you see the appearance of Julia Gillard playing out?
Well, look, I hope she comes out of it clean. I hope, otherwise it's quite awkward for the Labor Party because they'd be out there sort of promoting a tarnished former leader. I hope she gets through it. But I also think there's a good role for this Royal Commissioner to not only look at this slush fund, but look at all the trade union re-election slush funds and see where this money is coming from and where's it going to. Then he'll earn his money.
Well, we'll see what happens, and no doubt talk about it next week after the event. I want to get your thoughts too on the moves towards deeper engagement in Iraq. The President of the United States, Barack Obama, is given a key interview overnight. He'll deliver a speech to the nation Thursday, Australian time, where he's going to make the case, he says, for what they're doing in Iraq and give a few more details, we hope, on what the strategy is, what the actual plan is. There have been more airstrikes over the weekend, I think about 145 rounds now. Ground forces being used are the Iraqi military and the Kurdish Peshmerga in the north. This seems to be how the involvement will play out. US and allied air strikes, ground forces, though, being the Iraqis. Well, Grahame, first to you on this. Do you think Australians are ready for potentially our fighter jets and even our special forces being used in this operation?
Well, we need to see what the ask is with the President on Thursday. But it does seem to me it's about the only strategy that's going to work, and that is you have our fighters, the American fighters, although they probably don't need our fighters, but the fighters, the gunships and everything coming in over the top, and the local troops on the ground. Now, maybe at some stage SAS, although we never talk about that, maybe at some stage they might be there mopping up something or other or going in advance. But as far as sort of grunt troops on the ground, I doubt it. But that seems to me a reasonable strategy, and it means that the locals end up doing the fighting on the ground, but it means that they take back their own territory rather than, the Americans and the Australians and the POMs taking back this territory, and then what do they do with it?
And Bruce, that does seem to have been effective with the Mosul Dam and now over the weekend the Haditha Dam, but it gets a lot more complex if you're then going to go into Syria, where, of course, Islamic State have emerged from.
It does, and that's one of the big questions here, how you really clean it up, and I guess that's what we're going to hear from President Obama in the coming days. But because this is an organisation which does not respect borders, that's for sure. But as to the question about the Australian public's mood for this engagement, I think my gut feeling is that they would be feeling that with great reluctance they're going back into it with heavy heart, because no one wants to send our military forces back into this part of the world which never seems to heal. But I think the Australian public recognises that when you're dealing with a group like ISIL, which has its frame of reference to the 7th century, you really do need to take strong and decisive action. And the murder of the US journalists in recent days has only, I think, gone to further revolt people of goodwill everywhere around the world, and I think firm their resolve to go in. And I think that's what the Australian public will accept.
We've seen, and we're seeing in the footage we're showing now, images of that flag that's been used by Islamic State, ISIL, or as the Prime Minister now calls them, the death cult. Reportedly, that flag or a similar flag was auctioned at a Sydney mosque in Liverpool, in southwest Sydney, in front of families and young children. Today, the New South Wales Premier Mike Baird has said he would consider banning that flag. Grahame, would that be a good idea?
I'm not a big one on banning things. I'd sort of go the other way, and I would encourage the community, particularly the Muslim community, if they see that flag, to say to their kids, hey, that's what moronic sort of religious zealots look like. Laugh at them. And the last thing these people would want is to be laughed at. We should laugh at them.
The danger, Bruce, I suppose, you ban a flag, you're only playing into the hands of those who support this stuff.
Indeed, I think Graham's absolutely right on that. I think we should be just vilifying them, but not going into the world of banning them. I think we've just got to go out and tell the world what these people are like. And I think most people in the Lebanese community know exactly what they're like and are appalled by them as well.
Bruce and Grahame, always making sense. Thank you both very much.